No, you're live. Can you see yourself now?
No, I
No. Okay,
can't.
wait, wait.
It's all a green screen.
Oh dear, oh dear. Hello, everybody. We've been having few technical problems, like you can tell. So that's why we're about 3-4 minutes late. So relax. But I know you all have been really wanting to get into this conversation and have been asking me about the Sunday Guardian story, which was really the big story of last week. So I'm delighted to have Joyeeta Basu with us. She is the editor of the Sunday Guardian. And it's really, oh, there we are. And I
Yeah,
really want
please, I'm going to do some, hold it up a bit.
do some,
This is the
absolutely.
story.
This is the story. And Joyita, congratulations. Quite a
Thank you so
quite
much.
a break, especially after what George Soros came out and said. It just sort of puts everything in context, because sometimes when you read these reports, even when they're in, like, reliable newspapers like yours, you say, could this really be possible? I mean, I'm a script writer, right? So I'm thinking, yeah, in my world of crazy imaginations, this could be happening. But to realize that these are the games afoot is kind of scary, isn't it?
Terribly. And in fact, one of the political parties in India, they tried to discredit our story by saying it's a conspiracy theory. Now, what is a
Correct.
conspiracy theory when our reporters have spoken to a few people who have actually attended at least one such meeting? Okay. And from there, they have got that information. What is the conspiracy theory in this? There's no theory in this. We are giving our readers the uh, names of the areas where these particular three meetings were held in Delhi. For obvious
Mm.
reasons, we cannot mention the name of the country, where whose embassy was used. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, so a country is holding a meeting in its embassy, it means that they're involved. Okay.
Correct.
Now they held that meeting. We are very specific. It's a non-EU, non-NATO European country in the news. I mean, those who know, how to deduce fact from that, they will know which country we are talking about. It's just
Right.
that we cannot mention it because it may become a diplomatic incident. And this
Mm.
particular, there was a London meeting also that was held. Now, the London meeting also, this particular country was involved. Okay, apart from that, some other European countries have also got involved. And the thing is, you see, the meetings were held in London. Apart from that, three meetings, we know of three meetings that were held in Delhi. One was at this embassy, which is somewhere in, southwest Delhi. The other meeting was held on Barakamba Road near ITO at a lawyer's office. And the third meeting was held at Motibag at a rented accommodation. I don't think we have mentioned the rented accommodation in the story, but the thing is, you see, this particular meeting was held at a rented accommodation in Motibag. And for the Motibag, persons of Indian origin had flown in from Texas, from the US. So the whole point is, you see, and these people are pouring in a lot of money in kind of, they're raising a lot of money. They have a lot of money. These are moneyed people. So what they are doing is that they are hiring professionals, IT professionals, communication, PR agencies, all sorts of things, and they're actually getting started to, sometime from say around August, September. The timing is very significant. I'll tell you why. From that time onwards to basically work in a manner that they highlight. That's a very polite way of saying we are going to highlight the ills of this government. But basically, it is going to be a campaign of calumny, if I can call it. Why is September significant? September first week is the G20 meeting that is going to be held, where heads of government and state from all across the world, part of the G20, they will all be coming to Delhi. So what is going to happen if that is that they can coincide that particular, the campaign with that time, and maybe say August onwards, what happens? Basically, the whole idea is to sling a mudslinging at the prime minister. So you see what is happening right now, even with the Hindenburg and George Soros thing. So what we do not know yet about this particular meetings that took place, We do not know whether it is only foreigners who are involved, or there is some kind of an Indian political party involvement. Now, that is something we do not know about, but
As of now, as of
as
now,
of now, we
Joy.
do not know about it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
please.
and I Joyita, I want to ask you, remember when Trump came also, we saw those kind of riots take place, like on the day he was having his state banquet. There were, in Northeast Delhi, these, riots, and TV was full of those images. So what you're saying about September and G20 is very significant. And you're saying it could be, it's PR, IT, all of that. So social media will be involved, PR company, there'll be a narrative. Do you expect violence also on the streets?
We did see that during Trump's visit, didn't we? And you
Yeah.
see, if you want to run down India, if you want to run down Mr. Modi, if you want to run down India as a whole, this particular government also, that is the ideal time to have some sort of street violence. You see, so it is more than expected. We have to be very, very careful. It happened, whatever happened in the Delhi riots was pre-planned. Everything was planned down to the last detail. Even they had, the rioters had amassed Molotov cocktail and stones on top of the in their buildings. So how is it that suddenly it started and they were thrown? So a lot of violence happened. So the thing is that, yes, our agencies and our police will have to be on their toes, because it's ultimately India's reputation that is at stake.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it's really not about what your political stance is, but the reputation of the entire country at such a big global moment for the country. Joyita, I want to know, I want to go back a little bit and say, how long were you following this story before you actually went to print with it?
Actually, our reporters have been doing it. They have been
Hmm.
doing it for, they have talked about, say, sometime from 2021 December onwards, these things have been taking place. So it has been building up for some time. And our reporters got to know of it relatively recently. I would say last year. It is not
Oh.
maybe, yeah, it is, because so these things have been going on. And one person was called to a London meeting, it seems, saying that maybe you should be part of it. And this person, and I think a few more, they did not realize. They thought they are being called that, to go there and talk specifically about, because it was about, India's political situation, but it turned out to be completely different. So now this particular group is a very close knit group, and this group is, but now that the story is out in the open, I
Hmm.
think they will have to be much more careful. And I hope our agencies will be on their toes, finding out who these people are, what they have done, how many meetings they have held, the kind of funding that is coming in, where this money is coming in. These are the important things that need to be tracked.
So, do you think your story will derail or delay this initiative? How determined are these people?
Um, Well, Advaita, I think we have to think of it in the terms of, it is not just a question of our story. Our story is, or rather, the particular plan that is being hatched or that has been hatched is basically one small cog in the wheel that is
Hmm.
going to run throughout the year. You know, that is just one aspect of it. What you saw with George Soros saying
Hmm.
something today, that is another aspect of it. Hindenburg also says everything is linked. Okay, so
Hmm.
I cannot say whether it is going to derail or delay, but what is going to, this is scary, because this year is going to be very, very sensitive and important, because this is the year when the maximum attacks will come India's way, and of course,
Hmm.
Prime Minister Modi's way.
Hmm. Do you think, I mean, after reading your story and of course what George Soros also said yesterday, I'm viewing the Prime Minister's speech and especially that iconic last line in a different light when he says, Ek sab pe bhari, you know, and we all assumed at that time that he's talking about the collective opposition. But he may actually have been talking about this larger kind of plan for regime change.
You see, of course, if you're talking about is there a larger plan? Of course, there's a larger plan. That goes without saying. Because what happens in these cases, I can't see you anymore, Advaita. Are you there?
I'm there. I put you on a solo layout. I put you full
Okay,
focus
okay,
on.
fine, fine. So, yeah, because the thing is, you see, when you are looking at it, think of it in terms of what George Soros has been saying. I think George Soros, it has been quite a few years that he has allocated $1 billion just to ensure that the government is changed in India. And the particular statement that came out at Munich, his security conference, was very interesting. He was almost gloating that, this will mean the end of Modi. Now he has been significantly weakened and because of his Adani connection. Now, this
Mhm.
man is, I mean, let me put it this way, not just being audacious. I mean, I'm going to use a very unparliamentary language. He's also stupid. At one level, he's also stupid, primarily because, or the other thing that people who are feeding him information are making him believe that he is
Hmm.
capable of changing government here. Okay, they are
Yeah.
telling him that this has happened and this is the end of Modi. But the whole point is that they don't understand what Indian politics is about. They do not understand what Indian government is about, what Mr. Modi as a person is like. You know how voting patterns happen, how voting happens in this country. So for him to actually believe that this has weakened him, I mean, that is absolutely brainless of him to think like that. And that could have only happened because he has been fed that kind of tripe, basically nonsense, saying that, see, your money, you are getting this return. All right, he's a businessman after all. No, okay, the thing is that, and he wants his returns. He believes that he is getting his returns. Now, my problem is that you see, I found something very interesting. You see, I'm a journalist. I'm not supposed to maybe perhaps delve into that, but the fact of the matter is that the political angle. You see, nothing happens without the political angle part of it. I
Hmm.
found it very interesting that Mr. Jairam Ramesh, I mean, was the first to come out and say, no, 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 this is not the way to do it. What is going on? you know, I mean, what is going on here? Why
The
is
lady.
Congress currying for cover? Okay, why is that Mr. Soros repeating exactly Mr. Rahul Gandhi, whatever Mr. Rahul Gandhi is saying? Why is it that Mr. Soros is one of NGOs, I think Open Society Foundation, the vice president of that Open Society Foundation was
Yeah,
with
selling.
Rahul Gandhi during Bharat Jodo Yatra in October. So, and you see, this is where, if I am not saying that Congress is involved in this. What I am saying is that Congress is trying very hard to basically not get that taint on itself right now. But I mean, if they have got involved in it, and the very fact that they have this kind of tweet is coming in and all, do they realize that they have handed an election issue on platter to Mr. Modi? And Mr. Modi, being I think, a consummate politician, he's going to take it, turn it around, and use it against them.
Yeah,
That this
yeah.
particular party is seeking foreign intervention to have a democratic government, to get a democratically elected government removed.
Moved. Yeah,
And
yeah.
you see, this is, I mean, the Congress has committed a blunder, or Mr. George Soros got carried away and exposed it. I don't know. Okay.
But you know the thing with Mr. Soros is he's a billionaire. You're very familiar with the gravy train, right? That gravy train kind of came to a halt, and and maybe it's just a good business idea to have him believe that Modi's nearing the end of his time as prime minister. and to keep that train chugging along at least for another year. Because I think come 2024, and if Prime Minister comes back, I think Soros is, or at least his family, he's got some 5 kids and he's 92, will say, okay, enough of playing around. Stop pushing money here.
Yeah, he has already invested $1 billion. Okay, he wants returns. He thinks he is getting the returns. But you're right, absolutely, Advaita, that he may be sorely disappointed if he is still alive until 2024. Okay, so you see, and this is the problem. This is the problem I have found with a lot of people who are not Indian, people particularly based in the West. I mean, the thing is, you see, what happens is that it is very easy to sometimes sell them a particular narrative which they want to hear. You have to, certain biases they have, you feed that confirmation bias. And as a result, what happens, I know who are perfectly sane people who have been told and who have written in their books also that, India is an exception because that is why your democracy is sliding and all that because of Mr. Modi. So I know personal people, personal friends, I would say. I know these people. So I have had to tell them that, listen, when you are reading anything about India, do not read Western writers. Do not read Indian writers who are writing in the West. Go to the primary source, go to credible news sources, go to the primary source, read Indian newspapers, go to Indian media, and follow all these Indian. The result of which, what happens is that unless and until that is done, what they kind of live in some kind of a weird world, I mean, where they have got certain biases against India, number one. And they also are I'm talking about the Western media in general. They are also wary of being called things like Islamophobe. Now, this is a result of, say, for example, post 9/11, what happened because of this community getting identified. I would say wrongly, because it's, after all, no community can be identified as a whole with terrorism. But yes, there are fringe elements. As a result of which, there was this huge campaign mounted from the time of, say, Barack Obama, saying that, anything you say against Muslims, that is Islamophobe. So as a result, what has happened to a large extent in the Western newsrooms, anybody trying to say anything pro-India will be called, anti-Islam, anti-Muslim, because India is now ruled by according to them, Hindu, quote-unquote, nationalist prime minister. I mean, when Imran Khan was there, they were not calling Imran Khan at all an Islamic nationalist or Muslim nationalist prime minister. It is only reserved for, although it is an Islamic state of Pakistan. So you see, it is only reserved for India, as a result of which that guilt that they have, that fear of being called Islamophobia. So all that bias, all that some people have to do is that pick up a few stray incidents and feed that bias. As a result, that is one, of course. Then there is thing about, Chinese money coming in. There is always, in fact, I know Wahhabi lobby that we talk about. China and Pakistan and Turkey, a whole lot of people, they are kind of, there is the Sino-Wahhabi lobby that is also at work. And of course, this is my problem. I mean, for God's sake, if you want to win elections in India, win it honestly, okay, without asking for the outside support. Now, my question is that with this George Soros interview, I mean, the speech that he has given at Munich conference, there's a huge question mark on what is going on even in the opposition arena right now.
Joyeeta, you must have noticed it's been like, it's already started. What you're suggesting, you're saying it's going to take full force August, September, but it's already started. You had the BBC documentary, then you had the DW documentary, which said Muslims are not safe in India, that came out a week before. Both are public broadcasters funded by their taxpayers and their government. Then you have the New York Times editorial that came out. Then you had the Guardian editorial that came out, and the BBC documentary. Now you have George Soros speaking up. Then you had Hindenburg, and George Soros himself is a short seller. you know, there's just so much of this that's like being revealed. Do they actually assume that we just, you a journalist, me an ordinary Indian, we are not seeing links here, we're not seeing some sort of plan?
You see, the whole idea is that in this, so if I can call it a battle of ideology, because nothing is about ideology, ultimately, it's all about money. That is
Hmm.
ultimately, it's all about what kind of funding, who is getting from where. And the thing is, if you're looking at the Western press in particular, I mean, serious funding is happening by the Chinese, by the way. I mean, if you look at LA Times, I have friends who send me the supplement, and they have got China Daily supplement over there. So, and serious money is coming from China. So the thing that they're funded, the full-time funding is happening. So you see all these things, you see, how do they discredit us? Now, they discredit us by saying, as BBC has done in its documentary, that your press, you're not fair, you are biased, you're sold out. Only that part of the media is fine, which is, I mean, terribly anti-Modi. You see, even
Yeah,
if we are
yeah.
kind of going for a balanced narrative, okay, the thing is, you see, you don't get to see that. And Advaita, whatever you mentioned about 4, 5 incidents. I get sent, I mean, at least 2 articles a day where it is talking about India is stumbling, India is going down, India is going down. First of all, there is this bias, and of course, there is jealousy. When it comes to the Western media and all, there is jealousy, there is anger at what they call, they think it is like a poor country, uncivilized, where there is caste. Okay, there is caste,
Hmm.
there are no toilets, with so much filth and dirt. That particular country is wanting a place on the high table of global power. How can that even happen? You see, so that racism also comes in. So a whole lot of
Hmm.
things are involved in it. But at the same time, because they have fingers in all the so-called uh, credible news sources, what happens? They try to discredit us every day in and day out. But
Hmm.
that does not mean that there are no takers for people like us. We are constantly speaking up. We are constantly speaking up, and people are listening.
They are listening. I know. I mean, the Sunday Guardian story on my channel, so many of our viewers were just like talking about it. Every show that I've had, and I've had about 3 or 4 since the story came out, have been like, when are you going to discuss that story? When are you going to discuss that story? So I'm really grateful to you, Joyeeta, for coming and like, actually discussing this threadbare. Are you, I mean, obviously, you can't tell us what you're working on next, but are you going to be tracking this very closely as the year progresses and we get closer to election day?
Yes, we will be. We will definitely be tracking, and we know the name of that country. Okay, we know that
Hmm.
which the embassy where the meeting was held. Okay, so the whole point
Hmm.
is that obviously we have to track them, and I hope that, as I said, the agencies also should be tracking. I'm certain they are already. All these meetings that are taking place.
Because it's, when you think of this, it's outrageous, really. Can you imagine the Indian High Commission, say in London, sitting and talking about how they should get someone else in 10 Downing Street, or the Tatas, the equivalent of George Soros, commenting on US politics and who should be in the White House, and how the white America needs to revive its whatever, democracy. Can you imagine this happening? Like, it seems like it's, if you just reverse it, it's incredulous that these things are happening, really.
I mean, it is unacceptable. It is simply
Hmm.
unacceptable. It is undemocratic. You see, for people like George Soros, for example, he's all for democracy, but only when the democracy that the people who are elected is of they are of his choice. As for example, the other particular embassy and country, when you're talking about it, I'll tell you something. Uh, Fame sometimes goes into certain people's head, and they think they have got so much clout right now that they can actually impact India's geopolitical trajectory. I'm talking about a particular country. Again, I'm not going to mention which
Yeah.
country, but they think that, okay, we are going to impact India. But
Hmm.
please, I mean, there is more to India for some wannabe country in some corner of Europe to think that they can actually change India's trajectory. Think of what happened in that Adani stock market.
Yeah.
There were hardly any ripples.
Yeah.
Except for the initial turbulence, there was nothing. And what
Hmm.
was the West doing? They were constantly writing, that is the end of the India story. That is the end of the India story. I got a mail from a friend yesterday saying, oh my God, this guy is a super crook. I mean, he can bring down the economy. I said, for God's sake, what makes you think that one Adani is going to bring down India's economy? You know,
Hmm.
this is the kind of misperception they have about India. I mean, here your not here. I mean, here your president is talking about thanking India for creating 1 million jobs across 44 states, and you are talking about, in the US, and you are talking about one Adani is going to bring down India's economy. I mean, think
Yeah.
of the kind of, again, I'm going to say nonsense that these people are constantly being fed. It's a huge misinformation and disinformation war that is going on. It's all political warfare. Okay. And
Hmm.
the thing is that, but we have to be, but I think that is the good thing about India is that, you see, you go out to the street, no one bothers, no one cares, no one is interested.
Yeah.
So this is something that these people do not understand, that you go out to the street. I mean, I live in a society. I know what is the big issue right now. Election that is coming up. People are fighting with each other about, nobody is bothered about Adani. Okay. I know
Hmm.
out on the street. What is the big issue right now? Oh, the World Cup is going on. Women's World Cup. Suddenly it has become very important. No one is
Yeah.
bothered about Adani. You see, that is the whole point. They don't understand India.
And that is the I can still give the Western media a pass, or even old Soros a pass, but what is wrong with Indian political parties? Why are they latching on to these kind of non-issues and trying to make them a platform for a comeback? It's not going to work.
Uh, I think it is desperation. I think they're desperate. You see, 10 years, the UPA party is particular to be out of power for 10 years, they're desperate. There are people are desperate to come back. 10 years out of power. Another 5 years, they lose all their money. The funding is gone. Nobody is anywhere funding them. So that desperation is coming out, and this is showing. Instead of that, instead of plotting and planning and doing all sorts of things, if they were actually working on the grassroots and
Hmm.
going and talking to the people, pointing out, take up people's issues. There are lots of problems on the ground. No one is
Hmm.
going to say that this government has taken care of all the problems. No, but the problem is that the opposition is losing direction because they are worried that now they're going to be irrelevant. In a democracy, nobody is ever irrelevant. Everyone's time comes. Let me put it this way: the opposition, the particular opposition, the way it is now, its time has not come.
Absolutely. Well, Joyita, what a fiery conversation with you. I hope you'll come back on the Sunday Club. I don't know if Sundays are particularly busy for you, but because of the Sunday Guardian, but I think your paper's already out on Sundays. But
Yes.
we meet on Sundays. So if you ever have the time, I mean, we're definitely going to discuss this more with a bigger panel. I'd love for you to come on Sunday, this Sunday, if you have time and if you feel like it.
Uh,
You've already
this
made
Sunday,
made
it's
a
a
lot
little
of
problem.
friends.
Maybe other Sunday.
Okay. Okay. But you already have some admirers in the viewers, so you have to come back. And I'm all about the TRPs,
Thank you so much.
But thank you so very much for sparing the time. And I'm sure we're going to be discussing a lot more of this, unfortunately. But hopefully, it's not going to impact our electoral process or our democracy in a way that we all pay a price for. And I'm not just talking about winning or losing an election, but about street violence and that kind of toxicity. So thank you everybody for watching, and please do like this stream. Remember, you have to like it so that more people get to watch it. And we shall see you again very soon. I'm going to be back live at 10 p.m. with AIM, and we're going to really talk about Soros and all the other threads that tie into him. And once again, great story. Joyeeta, look forward to more from the Sunday Guardian, and keep up the good work and keep us informed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Advaita, for inviting me to your show. And I'm glad that people liked it. Of course, I'd like to come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.